Today we are going to be undervolting the RX 9070 XT. Now you may have seen a slide from other places on the internet where people are taking their GPUs down minus 200 millivolt and they're just getting these insane performance increases. And I'm here to say that at least with the model that I've got here, I cannot take the slider down anywhere near minus 200 millivolt. Otherwise, it just instantly crashes out. And the reason this is a difficult thing to undervolt the RX 9070 XT is because we just don't have the unlocked slider of the voltage and frequency curve. In other words, we don't know if someone like Dabara, for instance, I think he got the minus 200 just absolutely fine, or minus 170 millivolt fine, but he had an aggressively overclocked model. And so in other words, his GPU out of the box is set at a higher voltage level. And so when you take that down 170 millivolt, it's still able to run fine. However, most 9070 XTs I feel are not going to be this aggressively overclocked out of the box. And so it then leaves it into the realm of we have to try and find out ourselves what is going on with these GPUs, and the only way to do that is through trial and error, unfortunately, with the RX 9070 XT. And it's something I critiqued in AMD with the 9070 XT in my review, where I would have liked to have seen them just unlock the driver to work with, say, MSI Afterburner, so we could see what the voltage frequency curve is for our particular GPU that we have in our systems, so then we can tune that manually, those voltage points at those frequency settings, and have our GPU just run at those settings without having to play guesswork. But that being said, we can still extract a good amount of performance out of these GPUs. It's just a matter of installing the latest Adrenalin drivers. Now, for me personally, I opt in for the beta drivers instead of the WHQL drivers. Your mileage may vary, but if we look at the hot fixes for this latest driver, for instance, it has a fix directly aimed at the RX 9000 series. So this is the driver that we're going to be going with here today. And now once we install this, we can then open up the Adrenalin software. As well as on top of that, I like to do a custom install and have just basically Adrenalin software going, as well as our AMD driver installed. But we're going to go up to the performance tab right here, and then we're going to left click on this tuning right here. So now that we've got that tuning tab open, we're actually going to open up a game now in windowed mode, and what we've got here is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now also, you may be wondering, what's this fancy overlay here? This is MSI Afterburner with River Tuner. You actually don't need this to have this installed. AMD actually has in the performance tab here, right next to tuning, they've got metrics and the overlay, and you can just enable that as well as game detection mode, and then it should pick up the game. And after a little while, it should come up with the overlay and monitor your FPS and also your power consumption and stuff like that for you. So you don't really need to have the overlay that we've got enabled here. You've just got to change it from full screen to window mode, and then you should be able to see your FPS. You should be able to see everything here, your GPU clock speeds as well as that. And we'll try and just turn off GPU 2 as well, because that's just the onboard graphics on the CPU, which is kind of a little bit confusing. So we're just going to have just our RX 9070 XT in this top right-hand corner. Now, what we're seeing here is we've got the wattage up in the top right-hand corner. We've also got the GPU clock speeds. We've also got the FPS. And we see here we've got 136 just looking at the same spot on the screen, okay? And this is a great just static image to see when we're going to get an FPS boost from the tuning that we're going to do here. Now, what we want to do here is in the tuning tab, left-click this tuning tab, go down to the tuning control, left-click this custom setting right here, and the first thing we're going to do is left-click this little VRAM tuning. Now, with these cards, your mileage may vary. Now, with AMD cards, I've only had the chance with the 9070 XT to check out this, I think it's a Hellhound from Power Color. So this is the only card I've got. I will be getting a Steel Legend in a little bit later, but this seemed to work really well with dragging this slider here by holding down your left click button and dragging this to 2800. Alternatively, we can left click here and type in 2800, hit enter, and then also the memory timing, I left click this and then left click on fast timing. Now click apply straight away, get back to our game, and we can see here our FPS has boosted from 136-ish average FPS to 139. So we've gained some free performance for doing absolutely zilch, as well as the power consumption has remained pretty much exactly the same. So free performance right there out of your graphics card. That's the first step to, I guess, any sort of tuning on these cards, is getting your memory frequencies at the right speed and also getting those fast timings enabled. Next thing we're going to do is now we're going on to the big one, because there's actually going to be a few different ways we can do this, and this is the GPU tuning. So here's where we're going to get right into this right after today's video sponsor. Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again with today's video sponsor, VIP STD Keys. You can get activated with the Windows 10 IoT LTSC license, which will last till 2032. Also, don't forget to use the coupon code TYC for a massive 30% discount. And there's also Windows 11 Pro too. Links in the description below. So getting straight into these GPU tune clocks here, you've seen it on different videos where the voltage offsets, some people are able to get minus 200. Now in this particular example, right, we're able to get, if we go to minus 150, and I've tried this out in Kingdom Come Deliverance too, I've also tried this out in a few different games. We can grab this slider, drop it down to 150. Now, without doing anything else, the power limits, raising that up 10%, which I don't recommend, because if we'll actually just do that and show you guys what happens. We'll see the FPS in the top right-hand corner. It goes up to 149 average FPS. It's actually huge. Like, that's a big gain, right? So we've gone from 136 now to 149. That's like a 10% increase in this particular game. Not only that, our GPU clock speeds have just gone up heaps. They've gone up to 3.3 gigahertz. And you'll notice our board power has gone up to 348 watts. Now, watch when I drop this down to just 0%, just on the stock level again. In this particular example, we're still getting around 146 average FPS, and we've dropped our power consumption. So in other words, that plus 10% power limit really just added on a heap of power. It added an extra 50 megahertz, but in the grand scheme of things, the efficiency went down. So this is why I don't recommend the plus 10% on the power limit, because it's only going to be inefficient for your GPU. Now, here's the scary thing with these cards, right? I've found that 150 millivolt, minus 150 offset here, this can work absolutely fine in a game like Kingdom Come Deliverance, and we can gain a heap of FPS from this. But also on that note, if I try another game like Space Marine 2, this will crash out at even minus 100 millivolt. And this is the big difference between not just the card variants, but also the games themselves. They stress the GPU in different ways. I've also got an NVIDIA Undervolt tutorial coming where you're going to see how much of a difference the different games can make when it comes to undervolting. Now, another thing is too, we're playing at 4K here. We're testing out 4K, which is much more strenuous on the GPU than, say, 1440p is, as well as 1080p. So when you see this blanket, I got 100, minus 200 millivolt or minus 170 millivolt, I guarantee that person's PC sooner or later is going to crash. And we don't want any crashing. So what I've found with all the testing that I did, because when I undervolt, I like to test things out and at least, play a heap of games over a few days just to make sure that my undervolts are right. I found that minus 80 millivolts was what worked absolutely fine for this card, and it worked across all the different games with benefits to be had. Now, that was the offset there. So what we're going to see is if we go back to this example right here, same power consumption, but just extra FPS now. So from 136 to 143. So that's a free boost in FPS, and we've done nothing for that. Now, if we go back to our Adrenaline software, there's a few things we can do here. And that is we can either just drop the maximum frequency offset here, and what you're going to see this does is you're going to see it drops down the power consumption, which is, in my initial review, this is the undervolt that I initially settled for. But after tinkering with this a little bit, I decided that there's actually another method that you can do. And because with these GPUs, it's a little bit limited in what we can do here, we're going to go minus 80 millivolts just as a generic recommendation, and then just minus 30% on the power limit. And what you're going to see here is this is going to drop the card down, and we're only at 131 FPS, and we've only lost 5 FPS, but you'll notice that we've gone down to 222 watts from our original 317, which is a massive drop in power consumption. In fact, it's like a 30% drop, and the efficiency is actually insane here. This is actually a bigger efficiency gain than the NVIDIA cards. That's how big this is, and it's so impressive. So what we're going to do right now is actually, this undervolt is what I like to do personally, right? We might even be able to get a minus 100, right? So do play around with your particular card and do test your settings here, right? So we've gone up to 133 now instead of that 131. Now, in this particular example, as we said before, 150 did work fine in this particular game, but I just don't want to recommend this because it is literally going to be the exact same FPS as we started off on default settings, but we're just saving 100 watts. The problem here is just as we saw now, it just crashed out. And that's what I do not want for you guys. I don't want your PC to crash in any way, shape, or form, because when I'm playing games, for instance, a lot of the time I'll be playing them online and I'll be playing with friends, and if something crashes out, it is so annoying. So that's why we're going to stick with the 80 millivolts, because that's what it's just worked generically across the board. And we're going to keep that undervolt. And we're also going to quickly boot back into our games now and test out the two different configurations that we talked about before and run some benchmarks. And then we're going to go into the next game, Baldur's Gate 3 Bilderberg benchmark, which is very important because it's a completely different stress test, as you guys will see. And then we'll come back with the verdict. Now, also, I'm using MSI Afterburner again instead of the inbuilt Adrenaline overlay. That's because I've just got this all set up for benchmarking, and that way I can just hotkey everything and get you guys consistent results. So let's just start off here, first of all, with our default profile here. Nothing's been changed. And let's start benchmarking. And then we're going to run through all the different games. We're going to run through this game, and then we're going to run through the Baldur's Gate 3 kind of like hardcore benchmark. And then we're going to come back with some results and show you guys what's unfolded here. So now we've just finished these benchmarks, I've just wrote these down so I can give you guys a quick update here and tell you straight away, without a doubt, that the undervolted scenario with the minus 30% power limit is just a clear winner here. And I had no crashing on all three of these profiles when I was doing the benchmarking too, which is what I was hinting at before earlier in the intros. There's a difference between just running one benchmark in one game at, say, minus 170 millivolt or even 150 millivolt, and then doing so in all the games that you're playing. So what I'm recommending here today is more of a safe sort of setting, at least with this card that I've had here and it's worked in all the different games. I will, if I get another card in the review, talk about how that particular card does with different voltage levels, just so we can start to get more data and share it with each other. But ultimately, what we saw here, 65 average FPS in the Bilderberg benchmark, 4K high settings, 222 watts max, then 67 average FPS, 317 watts, and then 72 average FPS, 38.1% lows, and 349 watts. So the average FPS and the 0.1% lows did scale accordingly, but there was nothing out of the sort of field here except the power consumption, which was heavily in favor of the undervolted minus 30% power limit. So huge, just massive in terms of not losing a whole amount of FPS, but just dropping that power consumption down significantly. Now, another thing with these graphics cards is that you would want to, in my case with the 9070 XT here, you definitely want to undervolt them, in my opinion. It takes a lot of heat off the cooler, which in turn is also cooling the memory, which on these particular 9070 XTs, I know it's not just this Hellhound edition, but there's also a few other models out there that do suffer from relatively high memory temperatures. They're not crazy to worry about, but over a long extended period of time, I do like my memory speeds, especially at this level, running at, say, under 80 degrees, where this thing out of the box in, say, a 24 ambient environment was going up to like 88 degrees. Anyhow, that was Baldur's Gate 3 done. We saw with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, giving that a apples to apples benchmark here. We had the default roughly 130 average FPS, 115 0.1% lows. Undervolting, 125 average FPS, 112.1% lows. And then the overclock was 138 with 120.1% lows. But look at the power consumption numbers there. 317 watts on default, all the way down to 222 watts, and then all the way up to 348 watts on the overclock. So there is a clear winner in terms of efficiency here. And so we'll move over to an outro and just talk about this with you guys. So now that all is said and done with these benchmarks, what I've found here is that the minus 30% power limit was actually better than what I did in my original review. And that was, I took the clock speeds down 500 megahertz, and that dropped the power consumption down to, say, in the similar scenario, around 250 watts, but dropping the power limit down to minus 30%, that goes even further down to 222 watts. And I'm still getting similar performance as that minus 500 megahertz offset. So I'm saving even a little bit more power. But what I've noticed here was this minus 30% power limit plus the minus 80 millivolts, it's extremely efficient. Like, this is better than what I'm kind of getting on the NVIDIA cards. It's really impressive, especially in percentage terms. And then furthermore, if I look at the FPS drop there, especially versus the default profile, it's really impressive. So really loving what the 9070 XTs bring into the table, especially versus the 7000 series, the RX 7000 series. I'm just liking this GPU so much more. It's already got better efficiency to boot. It's already got better ray tracing to boot. But then this undervolt right here that we're able to achieve just really throws sort of like that icing on the cake, or even then it's probably like the main, just makes the main base of the cake just that much tastier and that much better, right? So really impressed with the numbers we've got here today. You can use the Adrenaline software. Now, of course, my critiques with AMD, I would still like to see them open up the driver so we can learn more about these GPUs as a community and share with each other information, as well as see how some of these overclocked models really are programmed versus the default models, etc. But as it stands, it's undervolting these cards and overclocking them is a matter of trial and error at this point in time. I just happen to have, I think this is an OC model, the Hellhound OC. So if you guys want to just copy the minus 80 millivolts in there, drop the power limit down 30%, and then also take your memory to around 2,700 to 2,800 with the fast timings, and then lock that in and save it, you should be good to go. Now keep in mind, if you are in a hot ambient temperature environment, you may have to start tuning it back a little bit. It might be 60 millivolts, and then it might be only 2,600 on the memory. So that's why I say when your mileage may vary here, you've definitely got to test out what settings work for you. But one thing for sure is I noticed, like, for instance, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I can get that minus 150 millivolt undervolt, and I can send I think I even got it to like minus 170, and I could send it over 3.3 gigahertz. The problem is if I try and load up another game, or even if I play the game for a few minutes, it just crashes out and black screens. So what I found is the minus 80 millivolts has just worked consistently. I had 0 crashes across all games when I was testing that originally back in Australia. So I know that this is a sweet spot for at least the card that I've got here. So when you're seeing people saying that they're getting minus 150 millivolts and yours only goes to say minus 80, or even if it's minus 70, don't feel underwhelmed. Don't feel like you've missed out or anything like that, because maybe that person's just posting that for a bit of clout or whatever, and really behind the scenes, you know, their computer's just crashing and they're dropping it down to 80 millivolt too. So just at Tech City, I just like to recommend you guys straight up settings that are going to work, because if I was looking for a tutorial, I would want what I'm like, basically I'm just giving you guys what I would want if I was looking for a tutorial on how to undervolt a RX 9070 XT, if that makes any sense. Anyhow, we got the 3 profiles here. I'll put the settings in the description below, as well as the link to the RX 9070 XT driver. That's all you really need. Even though we did use MSI Afterburner here, that was just to get my numbers. And so you can do that all with the overlay in the AMD software itself, the Adrenaline software. So you actually don't need that. I just use that for getting you guys consistent benchmark numbers. Anyhow, with all that aside, I hope you enjoyed today's Undervolt and even OC tutorial with the RX 9070 XT. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. And also, if you have any questions or comments about today's video, be sure to drop a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll see you in another video very soon, the RTX 5000 series undervolting as well. And with that aside, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.